welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel and you are watching Growing Green. So welcome back to my channel. It has been a little while since I last uploaded, and that is because I have been finishing off the renovation of my house, but it's finally complete, so I can finally get back into doing YouTube videos, Instagrams and TikToks. If you didn't know, I'm on TikTok, so make sure to go follow me down below. So today I am going to be doing a kind of like a sit down chat video in my greenhouse. It's boiling hot in here, but I'm going to be talking to you today all about my advice for a first time houseplant parent. Now, quick disclaimer, this information is all subjective. It's purely my experience within the houseplant community here in New Zealand. It may be different if you're in a different country, or you might have had a totally different experience, and that is 100% fine. Leave me a comment down below what your advice would be to a first time plant parent. But yeah, these are kind of things I've sat down and had a thought about and come up with that I've personally had experience with in my houseplant collecting journey. And I've also asked you guys on Instagram, and you guys have sent me a couple of bits of information that you wish you had have known or that you want to share with other people before they get into houseplant collecting. So if you like the sound of that video and you want to keep watching more, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. I do upload as often as I can. If you want to see a tour of the greenhouse, make sure to click the link up there, and I have made a full video on every single plant that I have in my greenhouse and kind of how the greenhouse works. But anyway, I'm going to get straight on into the video because this may be a slightly long one. So I'm going to start off with giving a little bit of information about myself. I started my houseplant journey just over a year ago in June last year, and my first ever plant purchase was a peace lily, which is kind of typical for a first time plant parent. You kind of want to start with something simple, and then of course I started to get into it. I started propagating, and now I ended up with this. So if you didn't know already, I run also my own website where I sell all the plants that I've propagated. It is www.growinggreen.nz. make sure to go check it out and sign up to the subscription email list so you never miss out when I upload a new plant. So anyway, let's get straight into the video. So I'm going to begin with a bit of general advice. This is kind of like a very broad information, things that I wish I had have known or thought about before I started collecting houseplants. Then I'm also going to go into a little bit of advice about plant swaps, Facebook groups, and of course Trade Me, which is very New Zealand specific, so which is why I'll put it at the very end for you. I've also put timestamps of everything down below if you want to kind of skip to a certain part of the video. So general advice, there is a lot of advice out there. That's hence why I made the disclaimer about this is very subjective, kind of to my experience. Hopefully you'll be able to find some of this advice useful as well. Alright, so the first bit of advice I have to give you is do not rush out and buy every single houseplant you want all at once. Trust me, this can become very overwhelming very quickly. Plus there are so many plants out there, like so many plants out there that yeah, you just at some point you just won't be able to take care of them. There's absolutely nothing worse when you're starting out with houseplants, buying a whole bunch of plants, bringing them home, not having anywhere to put them, or putting them in the wrong spot and watching them all die off. There is nothing more discouraging than that. So I totally recommend going out and buying a few plants to start off with, enjoying those, taking care of those, and then start to slowly expand your collection. That leads to point number 2. Make sure to do your research on the care requirements of a plant before you bring it home, because as in the first bit of advice, you bring them home, you put them in the wrong place, you don't give them the right care that they need, and they will just die off on you, and it again is very demotivating for keeping houseplants. It's also a more rewarding experience when you research actually the care of a plant before you bring it home, because then you can actually watch it flourish and thrive, and that's the whole point of buying houseplants, right? Is to enjoy them and watch them flourish and thrive and grow. This next piece of advice I think is an absolutely huge one. This is probably, if I was to give one piece of advice, this would be it. It would be to buy the plants that you love and don't fall into trends. Don't fall into houseplant trends. Don't go buying all the expensive plants or the fancy plants, or even just, you know, the cheap plants that everyone has to have because it's a new release or it's the thing on Instagram, or you know, just go out and buy the plants that you truly love, and you will enjoy the houseplant experience so much more. There's nothing worse than being sucked into a houseplant trend, and generally these plants are expensive, and spending all this money on these plants, and then you get home and you're like, oh, actually I don't really like that plant, I kind of just bought it because it was cool. So yeah, definitely stick to the plants you love. don't get sucked into houseplant trends, don't get sucked into buying stuff because it's expensive. Yeah, just stick with the plants you love and you won't go wrong. The next piece of advice is also pretty important. When you're in a houseplant shop and you are buying a houseplant or considering buying a houseplant, make sure you check the plant for pests while you're in the shop. Now, I know as a beginner I was too nervous to do this because I thought like standing there and like looking under all the leaves and all of that was a little bit embarrassing, but trust me, it's not. Pests can very quickly spread through your houseplants. I mean, for example, look at mine. If I get a pest in here, boom, everything's got it, you know. And the amount of time and effort it takes to go through all of your plants and kill off all the bugs and make sure they're gone is just, it's not worth the hassle. So make sure that you check your plant for pests before you leave the houseplant shop. Don't be embarrassed. If you see something on a plant, also don't be embarrassed to ask them, like, hey, what is this? Is this a bug? Is this a disease? Or, you know, make sure to ask them, because you're the only one who's going to suffer when you bring a plant home and it's got a disease or a pest, and then your whole collection gets ruined, especially when you have expensive plants. So don't be ashamed to check for pests before you bring them home. Also, on that note, if you do bring a plant home, I highly recommend quarantining it before you put it with your other plants. If this means just popping it on the other side of the room or spraying it for bugs or anything like that, any measure is fantastic to make sure you don't spread it to your other plants. Okay, this one I think is also a very important one. This kind of goes with the like not buying trendy house plants piece of advice. It is basically, don't go into debt for plants. Don't do it. If you cannot afford a plant outright, don't buy it. Seriously, it is not worth it. It is not worth going into debt for a houseplant. Houseplant prices are always coming down. Well, not always, but most of the time houseplant prices, if you are patient enough, will come down and you will be able to afford it. Even if that means buying a cutting, you know? It's just seriously not worth going into debt for houseplants. Household expenses come first. Trust me, this also goes with wanting to buy every single plant at once. Just don't do it. It's not worth going into debt for houseplants. Something that I found really rewarding about the houseplant experience is saving up to buy that expensive houseplant. If you go into debt for houseplants, you know, yeah, it kind of spoils the experience of buying an expensive plant. But if you save up for it and you're like, yes, I finally have enough to go and get it, it's a more rewarding experience. Keep your family in mind when you are buying houseplants. Now, I know this sounds weird and you should definitely be allowed to spend your money on whatever you want. What I mean by this is, if you are buying all of these houseplants and you are putting them all around the house, just keep your family in mind. Your partner might not like 600 plants everywhere, you know. It's exactly the same as if he was to pop all of his tools everywhere in the house, you know. Like, just be respectful, be mindful. And that also leads on to being careful with houseplants if you have pets or children. Now, I have pets, I do not have children, but my pets are my children. I know you know what I mean. So make sure that you do not buy, well, you can buy toxic plants, that's fine, but make sure to keep them out of reach of pets and children. There is nothing worse. I've heard horror stories on like pet Facebook pages of pets eating their plants and ending up in hospital and it costing, you know, thousands of dollars in vet bills. You don't want that. It's not just the money side of thing, it's for your pet's well-being. So make sure to put toxic plants on higher shelves and do your research, like when you bring a plant home, is it toxic, is it not toxic, because that will save you a lot of heartache later on. And also for kids as well, you know, if you have little kids that are crawling or toddlers that can reach, you know, the second or third shelf, make sure to just pop them a little bit higher so you don't also, you know, make your kids sick. Plus, pots can be heavy, and if a kid pulls a pot over on their head, bye-bye kid. Alright, so that was the general advice that I have for you. Again, like I said in the intro, if you have anything else you want to share, pop it in the comments down below. I always love to hear people's advice regarding purchasing houseplants, growing houseplants even. There's so much advice out there. So yeah, make sure to pop it in the comments down below if you have anything that you want to share. Moving on to plant swaps. Now, plant swaps can either go really well or really bad. I've done a few plant swaps in my time, and thank goodness I've always had a good swap experience. I know some people have had really bad experiences where they've been scammed, or the plant they receive is not well packaged and it's received broken and damaged, and there's so much that can go wrong with plant swaps. So here is a little bit of advice that I have from my experiences to make sure that plant swaps go well. So to start off with, plant swaps can be one of the most effective ways to expand your plant collection, of course, because, you know, you're just swapping what you have, so it's free, so you're not spending any money, which is fabulous because the more plants you can get for the less the better. A fair swap is one that both parties agree on. So plant swaps can be very, very subjective. Yes, plants do have a market value, but in regards to swaps and like sizes of cuttings and varieties of plants, it can be a very subjective thing. So swaps can get a little bit tricky. Sometimes it just works and you have one thing and another and you just want to swap it and it just works. And other times there's a little bit of a haggle involved. So yeah, when you're buying a plant, a full plant, you kind of know what it's worth. Swaps can be very opinion based. So just keep that in mind when you're swapping. Yeah, sometimes they just don't work out and that's fine. Enjoy the haggle of a swap. I love haggling for a swap. If someone wants to like push my boundaries of how much I think something's worth and be like, hey, would you swap this for this? Because I really want this, you know, like I enjoy that haggle. But just remember, like I said, they're very opinion based swaps, so make sure you're not rude. If someone is, you know, declines an offer or, you know, just isn't generally happy with the swap and wants to pull out, that's totally fine. Don't be offended, don't be rude, just say thank you for your time and move on. And it also goes for you. If someone's trying to push your boundaries and you're really not happy and you want to pull out, that's fine. Again, just say sorry, no, this is all I want for this. If you can't provide that, that's fine, don't worry, all good, thank you so much for the trade, and move on. It's also about being reasonable, and with swaps there's a give and take, so they might be giving you something a little bit more worth or vice versa, so there is obviously a little bit of compromise there. There is always risk involved with a trade. So trades can be scary, especially your first trade when you're sending off a plant of a certain value and you think, oh dear, am I gonna get something back in return? There is always a risk. There is never going to be a trade that is completely risk-free unless you're trading with friends or you have traded with someone before and you both know like how you package stuff and you're completely happy with, you know, how it went. I don't really have any advice for, you know, truly creating a risk-free trading environment apart from those things, trading with someone you know or with someone you've traded before. Just do as much research as you can. Something I do recommend with doing swaps, I've actually never done it myself because thank goodness I have had good experiences with trades. Meet up with them in person, go to a public place, don't meet in a dodgy alleyway, go to a very public place and meet up with them to do the trade. That way you can also have a look at the plants, you know, and the cuttings or whatever you're swapping and get a good idea of whether you actually still want to do the trade or not. And again, don't be scared to pull out of a trade if you want to, that's totally fine, and don't be offended if someone does pull out on you or vice versa. One way that you can try to avoid being scammed with plant swaps is to ask for very specific photos. Now this, if you're doing a trade by post, isn't foolproof because they can still like not send you the plant, but you know, it's kind of, if someone's genuine, they will be able to send you pictures. For example, can you send me a picture of the plant with you holding 2 fingers up? Can you send me a picture of the plant with your name and the date and the time you take the picture on the photo? I've had someone ask me to do this before and I am totally not offended by it. I know people just want, you know, to ensure that they're getting a good swap and the plant that they're going to be sent is what they're going to be sent, and that I'm a genuine person and I genuinely have the plant, because there have been a lot of instances where people have stolen people's plant pictures to get plants from other people and then they don't send it and then bam, you've been scammed. Again, like I said, this is not entirely foolproof. They can still not send you the plant even if they have it, but you know, it's just another measure that you can take to kind of help rat out the scammy people. And the last one with swaps is to make sure to join some Facebook groups. And I know Facebook groups can be a dodgy place also, don't worry, I totally get it, but like I said earlier, they can be a great place to get a bit of a feel for someone and learn whether they're a reputable trader or not. It's also a good place to find swaps. Just be careful, because yeah, I don't want to say you can't trust anyone, but there are a lot of untrustworthy people out there, and yeah, it's sad, but just do your research before you do a swap. So the next advice section that I have for you is Facebook groups. Now, Facebook groups have kind of gained a little bit of notoriety for only being a place that scams happen, arguments happen, drama happens, and that is true. A lot of that does go down in Facebook groups, but I have a little bit of advice for you on how to navigate Facebook pages, and yeah, basically just, you know, stay safe on the internet. I sound like your mum. My advice is to definitely join a Facebook page or two. You will soon learn all about the Facebook pages, what they're about, what the members are like. I definitely know that I've joined and left some Facebook pages very quickly because they were just completely full of drama, but I am a part of a few Facebook groups that I find are very informational. The people that have joined the group are very helpful and very positive, and yeah, there were some that I just seriously don't recommend. So I will pop, this is for New Zealanders by the way, but I will pop some links down below of some Facebook pages that I really do enjoy being a part of, that I found are helpful, good sources of information, friendly people that I've done swaps from that have all gone well. So yeah, I'll pop those in the description box down below for you if you want to go check those out. But yeah, basically the only reason I'm in Facebook groups is because that they do sometimes provide a very good source of information. For example, on pest diseases, you know, you could post a picture of your plant and say what's wrong with this, and you'll get information or advice. Also a little bit of a tip on that, some advice, for example, like this video is very opinion based, so I would do your own research as well through Google or any other sources, or go to a plant store and ask for advice, because the advice can be very subjective and it can work for some and not for others. Facebook groups are a great place to keep up to date on what's going on in the plant community. For example, new plant releases, new plant stores that are opening, people who are good to trade with, people who are good at selling stuff, small businesses that you can go and support that are plant related. On Facebook pages there are a lot of plants that do go up for sale. Some are simply just like advice pages and you're not allowed to sell on them, but a lot of them do allow sales of plants and plant related products. Just be careful, sometimes you can get an absolute bargain on Facebook. People will put plants up for a really cheap price, but they do go very quickly. But you can also kind of get a little bit ripped off sometimes on Facebook pages of people just wanting a higher price for their plants, because there is obviously, I mean, some pages have like 27,000 members, you know, so people will sometimes try and get a slightly higher price for their plants than what they're worth. So just be very careful when you're buying off Facebook pages. Also, there's a lot of scams on Facebook, so again, don't be scared to ask for specific photos, don't be scared to meet in person to buy the plant, and don't be scared to say like, hey, I don't want to pay you until I've seen the plant in person. Be polite and be kind on these Facebook pages. I know there is a lot of cause for drama, and there will be people with varying degrees of plant abilities on there, complete newbie beginners and advanced people on these pages. So just be very nice. If someone, I've seen examples of people posting basic questions, okay, just basic questions like, what is this called? Can you help me out? What are some care requirements for this plant? You know, like, to, you know, a seasoned houseplant person, duh, string of pearls. But to a beginner, they've got no idea. So just be nice, be helpful, give good advice, and if you haven't got anything nice to say, don't say it, just keep scrolling, it's not worth it. If you have an issue with something or someone on the page, talk to an admin. Talk to an admin first. Don't go private messaging people and being rude about it. Just ignore it, message an admin, be like, hey, I'm having a problem with this person, or, you know, and just go to the right places to sort those problems out. Don't make anything public. Just move on. Move on, it's not worth it. Just be nice. Which leads to drama. Be aware that these Facebook pages can cause a lot of drama. Don't get involved. Again, like I just said, be nice. There are people with varying levels of plant knowledge, technological ability, you know, just be nice to people, help people out. If you don't got nothing nice to say, keep scrolling, you know, and if the drama gets too much for you, just leave. Just leave. Don't even worry about these pages. Just leave. It's not worth your stress, your time. Just be like me. I just like grab some popcorn and just sit there like watching it all unfold. Another piece of advice that I would like to give in regards to Facebook pages is to don't be spammy or scammy or pushy or anything. Okay, so someone posts, for example, oh, I'm looking for an Alocasia Friday because anyone got one to sell or swap, and then this person gets 100 comments down below like, oh, I'm looking for one too, anyone else got a spare one? Or someone replies like, yeah, I've got one, I'll DM you, and they go, oh, me too. Nah, just don't do stuff like that. It's just scammy. Don't do it. It's just annoying. Don't be that person. I've also seen posts where people have been asking for like free stuff. Okay, for example, yes, look, I have so many plants. I could easily just give one to someone and it would not affect me whatsoever. But the whole point is to not ask people for free stuff. That is probably one of the worst things you could do on a Facebook page. Do not ask people for free stuff. That is bloody annoying. I've seen people post, for example, like a picture of the greenhouse. Ta-da! Look at my greenhouse, look at the hard work I put into this, blah blah blah. And then someone goes, oh, can I have one of these? Or slides into your DMs and says, oh, you've got 6 of these, can I have one? And I'm like, yeah, okay, so it's this much, I can post it to you, blah blah blah. Oh no, I want a free one. Like, you can just give it to me for free, you've got so many of them. But that's not how it works. For example, yes, I have 20 Hoya Australis here, but I have spent time and effort and money into making all these plants and cuttings. Do not just ask for free cuttings. That's not how it works. You will build a reputation for yourself that you do not want, so don't go asking for free stuff. If they're offered, absolutely take it, but don't just go asking for free stuff. That is This is a very New Zealand specific portion of the video, so if you want to skip through it, that is totally fine. Again, they put the timestamps down below so you can skip to the end. But Trade Me, number one, be aware that prices on Trade Me can be super inflated. So the thing with Trade Me is because it is a bidding website, an auction website, auctions can get way out of hand because people are bidding, they really want that specific plant, they fall in love with it, and they bid and they bid and they bid and they bid, and next thing you know, it's way out of control. So unless you really specifically want one plant that's on Trade Me, I would try and avoid Trade Me for that, because like I said, the prices can get super inflated super quickly. On the other hand, it can be a fantastic place to get a higher price for your plant. For example, you might have a rarer plant. I hate using the word rare. You might have a more uncommon plant that you want to sell, and just pop it up on Trade Me for, you know, what you want it for, and then you never know, you might get a higher price for it because of that bidding effect. So it also works the other way. Apart from the high prices, Trade Me is also a great place to buy plants because you do have a little bit more buyer protection because you are purchasing through Trade Me. Now, I can't really speak for their buyer protection because I haven't had anything go wrong or use the system yet, but do make sure that you read it on their page. I'm sure there's a page that you can go somewhere to read about their buyer protection. It's just nice to have Trade Me there as a mediation if something goes wrong or someone refuses to trade, and you can always get, like, you know, your what are they called, auction fees returned to you. So there is a little bit more buyer protection, because like if you buy something through Facebook, you've got nothing, nobody cares unless you've been like scammed and like 100 other people have been scammed. You've really got nothing. So Trade Me is a good place to buy higher value plants or even lower value plants with a little bit more buyer protection. So I find, kind of like for myself also, for my personal collection of plants, not just the plants that I'm selling, Trade Me is a really good place to find some rarer plant goodies. Now, they do pop up on Facebook on the odd occasion, but I find that Trade Me is actually a place where you can find a lot of rarer plant goodies. So rarer Hoyas, rarer aroids. Be aware of the use of the terms rare, quick sale, or short auction on Trade Me auction titles. These are normally people who are just using these words to try and get a higher price for their plant. So for example, someone will put Hoya fishtail brackets rare. Hoya fishtail are not rare, they are not even uncommon anymore, they are just common Hoya. You can buy them in plant shops now on occasion, but you can. So just beware. As a beginner, it can be hard to actually determine what is rare and worth a higher price and what is not rare. Be very careful when you are buying plants on Trade Me. Make sure you scroll through every single picture on the auction to see the plant that you are actually purchasing. And if you're unsure, ask a question. A lot of sellers who are also trying to demand a higher price for their plants will put the mother plant as the like auction photo, and then have this tiny ass cutting that you're buying for the stupid ridiculous high price at the very end of the photos. So be very careful. Make sure to scroll through every single picture and ask the question. If you put a plant on Trade Me that you want to sell that is a rare plant, for example a rare Anthurium or a rare Hoya, etc, etc, I highly recommend you put it up for a price, a reserve price that you actually want for the plant. Now, I kind of need to explain this a little bit more, but there have been several instances on Trade Me where someone has put up a plant that's worth, well, at least $500, for example, but they put it up for $1 reserve, and it's, you know, just before closing time, and it's hit 20 bucks. And they think, oh dear, I'm not going to get what I want for this plant, and they withdraw the auction. Don't be that person. Do not be that person unless you are willing to part with the plant. Just make it easier on yourself and everyone else and put the plant up for the reserve price that you want for the plant. That is one of the most annoying things that can happen. Be aware that that can happen on Trade Me. Alrighty, so that is all for the advice that I had written down and planned out. It was a lot. I hope you found something useful in here. If you did, make sure to let me know in the comments down below. And again, share any piece of advice that you have on houseplant ownership, things that you have realized that you wish you had have known before, or advice that you want to give to other people. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and also the thumbs up button, so that lets me know that you like this kind of content. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!